Hello everyone, welcome back to another video here on Cluiche with me, Séamus Brady, your host for this one. I'm joined by Jason Keelan from the Loaf of Bread GA podcast. For anybody who tuned in last night, we had some technical issues, myself and Jer, so we had to scrap last night's episode. We're now jumping on and doing a Monday during the day episode. It's a little bit different for the weekly timetable and everything like that, but it was just a weekend that you couldn't miss. You had to do an episode on this weekend because, I mean, let's be honest, Jason, the GA world got shook up. Cork beating Limerick, who seemed unstoppable, seemed like nobody could stop them doing the five in a row. Yet Cork stopped them, beating them not only once this year, but twice, beating them by 2 points in the All-Ireland semi-final. Limerick went down fighting as true champions do, and then Clare also beating Kilkenny to set up a repeat of the 2013 All-Ireland Hurling Final. We had huge shocks as well from the Camogie Championship, Dublin beating Kilkenny. It's one of the biggest shocks of the weekend. And then, of course, Galway beating Dublin in the LGFA. So right behind me on the wall now, we have here the champions from last year. Dublin are gone. Dublin up here are gone as well. And now Limerick are gone too. Only the Cork in the top right of the screen, if you're looking at me, are left. Just a crazy weekend.
Yeah, mental, and I suppose Pat Ryan deserves a lot of credit for what he's done with Cork. The Galway ladies footballers deserve a lot of credit for pulling off such a completely unexpected victory. Clare have banished some of the hoodoos of the past, which is great for them. And yeah, it was a strange kind of weekend. Yeah, as you said, the championship came alive. It kind of needed to. And I know it's even today, about 5 minutes ago, I think Mickey Hart has stepped down as dairy manager as well. So it's all.
We're gonna get to that.
Yeah, it's all kind of going. And even I was at Arcade Fire last night in Malahide Park, and my mate who was there, a diehard Dub, we were chatting and saying about, will Desi Dolan leave Westmeath? Will Desi Farrell leave Dublin? And would Gerard Brennan be a great fit for Dublin? So it's brilliant that at this stage there's so much to still chat about, because it could have gone the other way where we're going, Limerick have won this, it's over. Dublin have won this, it's over. Whereas now we have ultra excitement, which is what we needed, really.
Certainly. Well, let's jump into the game of the weekend, the one that everybody was going to watch as the weekend was coming up, and the one that certainly did not fail to deliver. Cork 128, Limerick 29 points. The seemingly unstoppable Limerick have been stopped from completing the five in a row. Once again in men's hurling, no county has ever done it. It's a sensational victory for the Rebels. They packed out Croke Park along with Limerick. I have to say, both supporters were sensational. Both sets of supporters are absolutely incredible. The colour, the visuals that they brought to Croke Park, the noise that they brought to Croke Park. I was at the game with our good friend Matthew the Gaelic Statsman. Sensational atmosphere. Just unbelievable. And for Cork to pull a win out of the bag like that is absolutely extraordinary. And they will be buzzing going into the All-Ireland final now.
Yeah, they'll have to be. It was great seeing Matt's thing as well, saying, this wasn't a dream, it actually happened. I'm delighted for them, to be honest. An awful soft spot for Cork, having family down there as well. And they went through tough times over the years with, they had their own issues with players and management and all that kind of stuff. And they seem to be, out of the fray a little bit for a while, and just, always the bridesmaid, and sometimes not even the bridesmaid. They were so far behind. 2013 final, I have great memories of being at that one. That was such a good game. I was at the All-Stars Awards after that as well, and it was just such a good year as well that year. So yeah, they've really made it. I was surprised at Limerick a little bit that the Cork running game was so effective that they hadn't, I wouldn't say they hadn't learned anything, but I was surprised at the amount of Cork lads who were able to get the run on Limerick lads so often. I think key to a lot of their success was the fact that Patrick Collins pucked nothing down on top of Kyle Hayes. Because we were chatting, a few of us were chatting about it before the game. We were like, if he starts knocking long puckouts, which it looked like from the start they were doing, that if he goes down Kyle Hayes' throat at all, he'll just wipe the floor with him. And he went the other side where there was a bit of a height mismatch with Mikey Casey, and it all played very well for Cork. I think Pat Ryan probably really hasn't got a lot of credit this morning. It's all been Cork and Hayes and Horgan and 700 points and all that. But Pat Ryan, got so much of that right yesterday that it's the first time really in a championship in so long that someone has got it right. I saw a stat as well. It's the first or the second time in 11 finals or semi-finals that Limerick have not scored a goal in the final or semi-final, and the last team to score a goal against them and keep a clean sheet was Galway a few years ago. So for Brian Hayes and Cork to get a goal was quite fantastic for them.
Mhm.
Now conceded. Patrick Collins, I'm sure, has a sore armpit this morning. Talk about playing through adrenaline, like if ever he wants an
Yeah,
example. And he saved the rebound, which of course he didn't know was a free out anyway. So I'm sure he's doubly hurt this morning. But yeah, it was just fantastic. I think leading into it, Aaron Gillan not scoring from playing a couple of games. I think there wasn't a lot of hype made about it, but there was very little minor things for Limerick that maybe weren't clicking the same way that they were in the past. And when Kylie came out yesterday and said, not all these guys will probably be here next year, maybe there's more to it behind the scenes than we know of. But to still take them down, Cork deserve immense credit. It was a stunning performance. Kieran Joyce, I thought, was just
oh,
unbelievable. Like that guy, for someone so young to do what he's doing, taking on a freak of a lad who's 6'5", and yeah, he's just a revelation for Cork, and I'm sure Matthew enjoyed every bit of that yesterday as well.
he certainly did. No, he was nervous. I was sitting next to him and I was getting
Yeah,
nervous, and I was like, I don't even
yeah,
have a horse in this race. Like,
yeah,
but
yeah.
you can't imagine how you're
Which it would be
feeling.
though, because you're so invested in your mates, like as well, that you just when the Cork won, I was delighted for Matthew. He was the first person I was kind of thinking of. I was like,
Yeah,
God, he's going to be living for this one. Like, so yeah. No more than when Dublin got beaten in
100%.
the football, I was thinking of you and Aaron, and how depressed you'd be. So
No, like being honest, of course, like you want Dublin to win most games, but at the
mm,
same time, there was a part of me that was like, when Dublin got knocked out, it was probably like, meh, probably good for the championship.
mm,
If we're being honest in terms of previewing the games, and like if we're to take the cap off for a second and just look at the
yeah,
bigger picture and look at the entertainment value of the championship, it's probably better that you have a year without Dublin every once in a while, a year without Kerry every once in a while. Like that's what I'm being honest. Just in terms of for a spectacle, I would love an Armagh to win it, or like Galway to win it, because they haven't won it in
mm,
so long. That if Dublin get knocked out and Kerry go on to win it, it's a bit like, right. So
yeah,
I kind of would have rather that we stayed in the championship after all, if it just meant that
yeah,
Kerry were going to win it.
yeah.
But anyway, Sean O'Malley comments here. He says, "Is it just me, or has Limerick shooting in particular been off this year in comparison to
Mm,
previous years, especially against Waterford, Clare in the first game, and now the semi-final?" Yeah, no, the shooting accuracy, Matthew actually had the exact stats down,
ah,
but the shooting accuracy was not on the level of previous years. And I noticed it even in the second half. They had about 3 or 4 big misses. Like Gerard Hegarty missed a shot that he usually puts over in
yeah,
his sleep. Dermot Burns
yeah,
missed a pretty easy free by his standards. Gillan missed a shocker in the second half. And you were thinking, like, these lads don't usually miss like that. I have to say, I thought all 3 of the names that I listed there were brilliant at patches of the
mm,
game. Gillan, especially, was like the Panto villain almost. Like
yeah,
anytime the Cork looked like they were getting up a bit of steam, Gillan was always the one to tap them on the shoulder and be like, not so fast. We haven't gone away yet. And he picked up a few scores that were sensational. But yeah, there was something a little bit off. And the thing that I noticed as well in this game was Cork got some absolutely huge moments, because the key thing to know about Limerick is that when they've won their games, they usually have certain big moments where they get the rub of the green, or certain big moments where they really clutch up and hit the back of the net. Cork, for them to keep a clean sheet was sensational.
mm,
But make no mistake, I think if you want to sum up the game in just a moment, if you want to pick 1 minute from a game and say that's a massive lift in terms of where Cork won the game, the best moment from this game for me was when Gerard Hegarty had that shot for goal. Patrick Collins saves it. Cork defenders stop the rebound from Gillan, and then they go down the field after winning the dirty ball. They work it to Decky Dalton, and he fires over a boomer of a score. The noise in Croke Park when that ball went over the bar was sensational. It genuinely was like Cork had just scored a goal, because everyone in the stadium knew that's a 4-point turnaround.
Yeah.
Limerick usually get a goal in that situation, and
Yeah.
that's usually a catalyst for them to go on and win the game. But instead, Cork had actually stopped them and then went down the other end and scored. And it just felt like in little instances like that, Cork were showing that they meant business this time.
Yeah.
They weren't going to be swept aside by Limerick like they were in 2021. That victory over Limerick in the Munster Championship was no fluke. Cork were every much their equal. They were every bit their equal. And I think moments like that were crucial in them ultimately getting over the line, because you could tell with moments like that, their belief was growing, their confidence was growing, that they could beat a team that seemed unstoppable in their pursuit of 5 in a row.
Yeah, I'd agree with all that. That's absolutely bang on. I when you mentioned Hegarty's miss, Darragh Maloney I know you were at the game, Darragh Maloney and RT. Basically, Hegarty had so much time that Darragh Maloney also had time to say, oh, he does a miss from here. Next thing he went wide, and he was like absolutely stunned, like as the rest of us were, that he had missed. It was quite surreal nearly to see it, because you're like, okay, that wasn't Garrod Hegarty, that was somebody else, an imposter. To say the 4-point turnaround was huge. I thought just overall the running game was what really, really killed Limerick. Now the shooting, I'm dying to see the kind of stats. I know you're saying Matthew is it there. I presumably would anyway, that they are down the shooting. The first 8 or 9 minutes, they had, I think, 3 or 4 bad wides, like from different players. Like they weren't all just one player, and it lifted. I think if you had the same size of a crowd that was there on Saturday, it might not have impacted as much, because as great as Saturday's game was, the atmosphere was dull. Anyway, it seemed on the TV anyway, and the commentators alluded to it. They said it wasn't great at all. When you've got 82,400 and half or more of them are getting on your backs for that kind of thing, and especially the young lads, on the hill, who always, make it far more entertaining. I think it maybe just played into Limerick. It played into their heads a little bit. Not enough, maybe, that it should have affected them. They should be well used to that by now. But I think just there was a special kind of crowd, and obviously you guys would know better, been there. But it certainly looked like their shooting was off a little bit. Normally they would do the quick start, they get scores fairly rapidly, and a team would be chasing it for most of the game. Whereas Cork were never out of it. They were always ahead a little bit for a lot of the time, and it's what would you say, uncharacteristic Limerick, maybe would be the best way of putting it. And yeah, Sean in the comments is right. Waterford, Clare, there's probably patches where we could pick out wayward Limerick shooting, which maybe for the first time in 5 years, probably you could say that we could actually pinpoint a patch where, okay, this is not them. It was a little bit peculiar. Not I suppose the first time that we might have thought of it, but when it comes to Croke Park and a full house, a game against Cork, you don't expect it from them. A little bit unusual, I would say, and the stats on it, I'm sure Matt has, are probably interesting as well.
Yeah, no, certainly. And I think one of the big things when we were talking about it, and we'll go back to Kylie talking after the game, and I'd be interested to get your take on this as well, is at the full-time whistle, like the Limerick players were genuinely standing in the middle of the pitch for ages. Like they were very much letting it wash over them. They were letting that feeling sink in that, yeah, it's gone now. And like their opportunity, it is quite unfortunate to say this. It's like your opportunity to do that, to make that bit of history. It is gone now. Yeah. Like unfortunately for them, that is gone now. You only get one shot to do 5 in a row. Like if you look at the great Kerry team in the 70s and 80s, like they did go on and win another 3 in a row in the 1980s, but I mean, they didn't get near the 5. And like you look at Dublin again, I mean, since winning 6, Dublin have won 1 in 2023, and they've been knocked out in 21, 22, and now this year in 2024. Once you eventually get beaten, you very, very rarely go on a run like that again. And I think the only team that ever kind of completely did it again was the Cork LGFA team of 11 titles in 12 years. But that in the majority, once you lose your opportunity like that to do 5 in a row, you don't really get another one. And I feel like those Limerick players were standing there fully coming to terms with, that's it. It was the same with Kilkenny in 2010. That yes, while they came back and won the next two, it was going to be an almighty task to do 5 in a row. Like it was just going to be more or less impossible. And yeah, so I just feel like when they're there and they're saying, Kylie at the end is saying a few of these lads might not be back next year, I think you have to put yourself in the position of a Limerick player, like an Aaron Gillan, a Keane Lynch, a Garrod Hegarty. You know that every week, let's take Gillan for an example, you know that every single match you go out to play, the best fullback in that country has been prepped to mark you for a long time. Conor Cleary, Conor Prunty, Hugh Lawler, Dahi Burke, Sean O'Donoghue, they're all waiting for you. Like they're all, been prepped. You're going to mark Aaron Gillan, and then they're training loads. And Gillan has had to put up with that for so long that I think Kylie might not necessarily be talking about retirements. I think he's talking about a break. I think we could see a few of them pack up and move to Australia for a year just to take a rest from it all.
There's a few of them, I'm sure, who once the Aer Lingus pilot strike is over, will probably be heading stateside out to play in the Boston or New York championships, or go out to some of the San Francisco sides or something like that. But yeah, I suppose on the 5 in a row, we were chatting I think before the gig started last night, and myself and my mate, it's probably easier for a Mullingar man and a Dub to digest a Limerick thing when you don't have the full insight. But we were debating whether we'd ever see a 5 in a row in our lifetime. We said that if that Limerick team can't do it, then the playing field surely eventually will not level out, but it'll become less dominant for the foreseeable future. And you might get a 2-3 in a row maybe, but we were saying we don't think a 5 in a row will come around again. And if it does, it will be at a time when maybe hurling has gone through a phase where everyone who's playing it is 6'7" and people have lost interest in it, and there's only like 2 teams who care about it anymore. That would be the only way. I don't think we'll see it again. That Limerick team are freakish in every way, from physicality to ability to prep to on the field. And even as you said, like yesterday, how I didn't know they were on the pitch for so long. And, maybe that's part of it, and a part of the game that they haven't had to do in, 5 years, having to settle and recoup after a loss in a big game. So it's new for them. You never know. Next year they could come back and be involved in it. But I would probably agree and say that I don't think we'll see a team like that, or we don't want to see a 5 in a row team. I would say in our lifetime, I'd be very surprised. I'd be very surprised if we did. And then, in terms of whoever is, in the Limerick forward line, for a long, long time. And now we're going into a final where these two haven't met in a final since 2013. And the other thing about when I mentioned 2013, the other thing I think of is Limerick didn't have much of a surprise factor. There was nobody who was on that panel, really, who Cork were going to go, geez, I know nothing about him, really. Whereas in 2013, Shane O'Donnell got sprung in, and they were like, who's this lad wearing 27 on his back, or whatever it is? And next thing he's got a hat-trick, and there was a complete surprise factor. Limerick haven't really had that this year, and maybe as you said, lads stepping back might just make way for lads who will step into the fray, and maybe the surprise factor will come back in next year. I wouldn't say it's not going to be like Derry from the league versus Derry in the championship, where they're just going to collapse and come out, go nowhere. But certainly teams will, now that they've been beaten, will now think the monkey's off the back, and they might be, they might not be the invincible side that they were. But I just think it's maybe now time that they might have to get a couple of young lads in as well, just to boost things along a little. I know when we played them in the league down here in Mullingar, they had one of their standout lads was I forgot his first name, O'Dolig, something like that.
O'Dolig.
Yeah, O'Dolig. He was class against us, and I hadn't really been too familiar with his name. I'd seen his name, but I hadn't really seen him, and I thought, Jesus, that's class. And then he can't get onto the championship team, so they maybe need a few more of them. Competition's always good, and Paul Kinnerk and John Kiley know that. John Kiley I'm sure will stay along. Paul Kinnerk will surely stay there, even though I give my left arm to have him here in Westmeath. But there is a vacancy available if he wants it. But yeah, no, I think no 5-in-a-row team in our lifetime, and a couple of new players for Limerick next year, and maybe a small transition, and they'll be back again, I'm sure.
Yeah, no, I think so. Look, it was just a sensational game. And then before I wrap up, what I'm going to do is give my major shout outs. Patrick Collins in goal, I thought was absolutely extraordinary. Like the two saves that he made, the one in either half, the first half one from Gillan, and then the second half one from Hegarty, like they're genuine game-changing moments there. I thought Brian Hayes, a corner forward, was fantastic. The goal he scored was brilliantly taken. Could have got a second goal, obviously, with the flick over Quaid. And then the other one, I'm not sure if it was a throw ball, to be honest. So definitely Cork looked in those 5 minutes like they could carve Limerick open at will. And like, you knew Limerick were going to come back. You knew Limerick were going to have a late surge. But there were just key moments where Cork managed to just hold them out. And then there was key moments, obviously, when Decky Dalton landed a couple of points out on the sideline. Patrick Horgan got his point to finally go into 700 points, which is absolutely extraordinary. It was a game that had it all. And then the fans, like obviously the record attendance at an All-Ireland hurling semi-final, like just extraordinary stuff. Cork brought so much colour, but so did Limerick too. The two sets of fans absolutely complemented each other in brilliant ways. Like the red and the green really pop on the TV, and then like the flares up in Hill 16. I don't mind them as long as nobody gets hurt. They bring a lot of colour and atmosphere to the stadium. And
you've changed. You work in Croke Park now. You've become one of these people. Yeah, like my sister-in-law is the same.
Yeah. As long as they don't hurt anybody, I'm all for them. But make family friendly flares. That's what I would suggest. But genuinely, the color, the atmosphere, like it was just set up for a right battle, and it was from the get go. It was just the intensity. They just didn't let us down at all. And Rob Downey, like to open the score and with that point as well, was just absolutely ridiculous. There were so many points in the game which were brilliant. Nicky Quaid pinpointed a puck out to Tom Morrissey, who was running across Cork's 45, and stuck it over. Like just outrageous level of talent and ability on display. It felt like the All-Ireland Hurling Final, and Cork got over the line in what was one of the most gripping games I have ever watched. But that wasn't.
There is one other thank you on the list.
Final. What?
There's one other thank you or congratulations on the list. I would say Tommy Walsh, the ref, deserves credit. Yeah. Now, the hand pass thing, I don't know how any ref on the planet actually can ref it anymore with the hand pass, but forget about that part. He's the first ref in a long time in a big game who let quick puckouts happen. And the difference it made to the game was brilliant. I know near the end he stopped a few. He was probably not able to run after them anymore. But for the majority, he let the quick puckout happen. And even the TV were kind of caught by it a little bit. And it just made for so much more entertaining. There was no letting lads get back into positions. You know, if you were out of position, tough, you know, you get over it and you get back down now. And it was just brilliant. I thought he reffed it the way that hurling used to be reffed. And it's exactly what it needed. I think if it was a stop-start puck-out game, might not have been as entertaining. I think he deserves credit. And I know he's getting hammered over hand passes and stuff. Like, I defy anybody to go out on the pitch at a halftime under 10 game and tell me the hand passes are right or wrong. Like, it's just impossible these days. It's just so quick. But yeah, he was definitely another one I'd congratulate.
No, he certainly was. He was fantastic. And like the whole game, the spectacle, everything, it felt like the biggest day of the summer. It felt like the last day of hurling. And certainly Cork, just the atmosphere when that final whistle went was just unbelievable. It was just unbelievable. And Matthew was delighted. I was delighted for him. He managed to get a sensational victory over what I still think I would shade as the best team of all time. Genuinely, I still think, given what they had to go through over the last 4 years versus what the Kilkenny team had to go through in Leinster, I think there's no comparison with who had the more difficult road to the All-Ireland semi-finals. But this wasn't the All-Ireland final. It was an All-Ireland semi-final. And if they want to win the All-Ireland, Cork will have to beat Clare. Clare beat Kilkenny finally, 24 points to 216 in Croke Park. Clare took a long time to wake up, but then when they did kick on for home. And the noise in Croke Park, I'm telling you, where I was sitting, there was a lot of Clare fans around me. they roared when Tony Kelly landed that point to put them 2 clear. And they could think they kind of realised that finally they had laid this Kilkenny hoodoo to bed.
Yeah, I was thinking at full time, because I was watching this as much as I could. It was clashing with just the after of Westmeath Camogie that I was at as well. But chatting to Will O'Callaghan and stuff on the radio, I was doing a bit of radio work with him, and just thinking after, like, what if they didn't win? Like, would that Clare team come back from another Kilkenny defeat in a semi-final? I don't think they would. Like, you can only take so many beatings against the same team without it just weighing on your mind so much. And I was so delighted for them that they got over the hoodoo. I think Brian Lohan deserves so much credit, the same as Pat Ryan does for Cork. Like, to get them past Kilkenny, who for a long time Kilkenny looked like that they could have been out of sight. There were goal chances aplenty for them that on another day they could have been gone by half time and it could have been over. I was delighted, as I said, for Clare. I just thought Kilkenny shot themselves in the foot a little bit. Will was saying to me that after, I was like, how long is it since Kilkenny scored? And he said it was 4 points in the last 25 minutes. And the last one was a TJ Reid free, like 58 minutes or something. Like, that's atrocious from Kilkenny.
Mm-hmm.
Like, that is...
For a team with their ability.
Yeah, that wouldn't I wouldn't expect Westmeath at their worst to do that. We would usually, every team would be able to tag on a few scores, even if you get murdered. I don't know, did something just get to them? Were they still pondering over missed chances earlier on, where they're like, oh God, we should have had these lads gone, and now look, they're coming back, and now we're in trouble? And I don't know. I know I said it on with you before that I don't think a Cody Kilkenny team lets much of that happen. I still think there's learning curves that Derek Ling is going through. He looked fairly despondent at full time, shaking hands with Brian Lohan. So I think they will see it as a missed opportunity, especially with Limerick gone. But for Clare, it's an absolute, dreamland now that it's... I know Cork will go in as favourites at the bookies, whatever. It's a 50-50 shootout on All-Ireland Final day, and anything can happen. But I thought Kilkenny left it behind. I'd say a lot of people probably agree the same. I haven't got to look at papers written today, but I'd say it's probably a similar story. They should have been out of sight at half-time, really.
No, they should have been. There's no question about it in my mind, because, like, the stone cold facts is they were 6 points clear.
Yeah.
Like, they were 6 points clear. Acers here has a couple of comments in. He says Clare will win the All-Ireland and it's too much for Cork, just like in the round robin. He says Kilkenny should have been 10 to 12 points clear at halftime. Crazy that the bookies had Cork to win at halftime yesterday at 50 to 1.
Yep.
I mean, if you threw that on, a good weekend or a good night out, obviously in the capital, maybe might have been away now. I know Dan Casey, was out celebrating after the game was done. I was with him on the GA hour. The fella his voice was quite hoarse, I think is a good way to put it.
Raspy.
But, raspy, I think that's a good way to do it. But why wouldn't he? I mean, it's a sensational weekend for the Rebels. It's a sensational weekend for the Banner as well. But I just wasn't that impressed with them. I think they got over the line, but I think the difference here is, and it's a very unpopular opinion, I know, I think Cork won that game against Limerick. Limerick didn't give them nothing.
No.
Cork won it. Cork took it off them. Kilkenny didn't finish Clare off. Kilkenny were 6 points clear when the second goal hit the back of the net. Quilligan made the mistake. Second goal for Kilkenny from Billy Ryan. And then nothing. They allowed Clare to just roar back into the game. I do think that the substitutes like Ryan Taylor and players like that coming in definitely made an impact. But I think genuinely, Kilkenny would be sitting there thinking, how on earth did we leave that one behind us? Aces here says Dicey's was jammers with Cork supporters last night.
So was Malahide Castle at Arcade Fire as well. Anyone with a Limerick top had it covered up. Anyone with a Cork one was flying it high.
I seen a few people out now. I was driving late enough now at night, and I seen a few Cork fans around Sutton and Clontarf area, and I was like, what? You're miles away from Croke Park now. You're so far away from where the game actually took place. But You love to see it. In this game, what do you think the key moments were in Clare ultimately getting the win now? Because obviously they implemented things in the last few minutes to get over the line. But my kind of stance on it is, same thing I was saying to you, I think it's just a case that like Kilkenny didn't finish them off. Clare did do some good things, don't get me wrong. But Kilkenny had the chance to finish them off and they just didn't.
Yeah, and the fact I would say some of Clare's better players were actually their defenders shows that really Kilkenny shouldn't have allowed the forwards to get as much scores because the forward line wasn't firing really as well as it should have. I thought Adam Hogan was very good apart from allowing Cody to slip for the goal. I thought he was super. I thought Kilkenny.
But that goal though, mate. Can we talk about that goal?
Yeah.
Goodness gracious, the ability, the skill. Just bat it in. And the funniest moment is when like Adam Hogan is just looking at him like, what kind of alien am I marking? Like,
it was a bizarre but also brilliant goal. I'd say Hogan would be disappointed to lose him in such a way, but when he did, you can only take your hat off to Cody for doing what he did and finishing it off in such a, Rafael Nadal serve tennis style. But it was brilliant. But other than that, I thought Hogan was excellent. I thought that spine of the Clare team is just very, very good and can drag you back into a game if needed. Like Cleary in particular is just so good that I don't think he gets enough words in papers and online stuff. I think there should be more made about him. But I also think Kilkenny let the Clare bench have too much of an impact. I thought Galvin was very good. I thought Taylor was very good. Trying to think who else it was who came on. But I thought they were too influential for what Kilkenny probably could have done better. They just seemed a little bit unprepared for these lads coming on when really it's like it's part of the playbook. These boys are going to come on, regardless of whether they're winning or losing. So they should have been more prepared for that. And I think the key stat, as you said, it's Kilkenny let them back into it by not scoring for 12, 13 minutes. It's a disappointing one if you're a Kilkenny fan. It's I wouldn't say get out of jail, that's the wrong word. It's a very much a handy one for Clare because really they should never have. That second 30 minutes should have been more boring than it was. But the atmosphere the stadium would have emptied, I'd say, by the second half, which wouldn't have taken long either. But it wasn't Kilkenny's finest hour, really wasn't, and they'll have to pull themselves back from that next season as well because that'll eat that at them now for a while, I would say.
Yeah, it certainly will. I think kind of one of the main things as well that I noticed coming towards the end was they missed big chances, and unfortunately TJ missed 2 frees towards the end that you were like, TJ doesn't miss them. Like TJ doesn't.
No.
It was so weird to see. I do want to then go from this into just giving praise to TJ and to Patrick Horgan. Like to achieve 700 points is just ridiculous in terms of how good they've been for so long. Their dedication, their commitment, their professionalism, their skill and their ability and their consistency is just a testament to the professionals that they are, to the players that they are. Cork and Kilkenny, legends, both of them. Hurling legends, both of them. And no matter what, it doesn't matter which one of them finishes the top of the all-time scoring list or anything like that. They're both icons of the game. And if that is TJ's last game, because a lot of people were talking about TJ and the way that he was after the game, if that is TJ's last game, he has nothing to prove. And he's the type of player that Kilkenny's dynasty in hurling is built off of, a player who is consistently excellent and professional and holds himself to high standards. And he just seems like a really nice bloke as well. Even like any interview you see him do or any person that talks about him, they seem to speak really highly of TJ. So if that is the last we see of him, he is a legend of this game.
Yeah, it was after the game yesterday. It was quite, I wouldn't say unusual, but just the fact that his little daughter Harper was on and Niamh was obviously on the pitch as well. And it had that sort of feeling of, this is my good luck. It would be a terrible shame for him to go out on a note like that. But given the way
That's
hurling
why
is
I
these
think
days,
he might go again.
yeah,
I think he
he
might go
might.
again.
Yeah, I don't think it would sit well with him to go out on a note like that. But it did feel like that maybe there's a doubt in his mind about whether he will come back. I just said if he doesn't come back, he's left nothing to prove for Kilkenny and for hurling as a game. It does, as a small, I suppose, side note with Horgan and Reid, it does show the value of free taking in the modern game. The fact that when you look at, say, Clare yesterday, I think it was McCarthy had like 11, but 9 of them were frees. There's the number of frees scored in games is going up exponentially in hurling, and you do need a reliable player, and that's where TJ has, been at the forefront of that for such a long time as well. I would say if he goes, others will follow. If he doesn't go, then maybe others might stay on. But you could see a rejigged Kilkenny team next year. I'd probably have to have a look at the list just to see, but I know there's probably a couple of names that could go. If he goes, I think some of them will follow suit for sure. And then for Horgan, like, he's brilliant. TJ Reid, I just said as well, yeah, actually he is a gent. I was lucky to meet him a few times. I met him at the All-Stars. I was 2013, 14. I was at a few of them, and I met him once at it, and I got to chat to him for a couple of minutes. And as much as I'm not overly fond of Kilkenny, mostly because any Kilkenny hurling games I've ever gone to, like, there was one I was at a few years ago that just irked me because they were level in a very tight game, and a load of fans around me started leaving to beat the traffic, and I was like, why did you come here in the first place? Anyway, I won't go into that about my dislike for Kilkenny fans, but he is a gent, and I had so much time for him. And Niamh, to be fair as well, is very, very nice. I've chatted to her a bit as well. He's a lovely guy, and he's done so much for the game. And if he does go out, there's plenty of up and coming hurlers who should probably look at the likes of him for inspiration of how to, be on the pitch and be off the pitch as well, because there are some GA players who have gotten too big for their boots and have forgotten where the game is and how it's a grassroots and a community thing, and don't turn your back on children if they ask you for a photo kind of thing. Whereas he doesn't seem like that kind of guy at all. And Patrick Horgan, never the pleasure of meeting him, but just seems like good crack, quiet kind of good crack as well. That's what he comes across as. And again, another lad who nothing left to offer or to give to hurling. He is literally given every inch of his life, as TJ has as well, and plenty of others, but particularly those two.
Yeah, no, I could see the two of them sitting down for a pint now when it's all said and done. Meet up and go for a pint somewhere. I can see it happening. Initial thoughts on who's going to win that final? Just be curious to get it. Obviously, there'll be a preview show, full preview show, but initial thoughts here as well a good bit.
I think Cork's running game, if it stays functioning for the majority of 70 minutes, will be too much for Clare on the day. I think Cork, having played in that cauldron atmosphere, will help. Clare played in a back garden type atmosphere, which is probably not ideal either. You want to have experienced that. You want to have experienced that kind of atmosphere before. I think Kieran Joyce will be the player of the match already. I think that he is just going from strength to strength, and as I said, I don't think he gets enough praise for what he's doing and for his age and everything. I think he'll have a big impact on the game. Patrick Horgan will hopefully have a fine game as well. Clare maybe can offer something for a while, but Cork, I don't think, unless nerves get to them, I don't think they will do what Kilkenny did and allow them back into the game if they are ahead. I think if they're ahead, they will stay ahead. If Clare go ahead, Cork, I think, will pull them back, and it'll either be a strong Cork win by 5 or 6 points, or it'll be a narrow Cork win where they've come back from the
No,
seeming
they
dead.
don't do straightforward. So
No,
right
no,
now I'm saying
no.
Cork by 2, but
Yeah,
I
probably
wouldn't
a
be
fair
sure.
shout. Yeah,
A lot of comments
I'd go
in. I
Cork by
love to
maybe
see it.
5.
Ace just throwing them in. Copperspace Jacks was jammed with Clare and Kilkenny fans on Saturday night. Donegal versus Galway is 50-50, but I'm thinking Kerry versus Donegal All-Ireland Final. Of course, that we'll doing a full preview show for the upcoming weekend's action as well, so do be sure to check that out as well. Walter Walsh should have started, he's saying. Loads of retirements incoming for Kilkenny. Killian Buckley, TJ Reid and Walter Walsh, all retirement. I think Walter's an interesting one because he definitely has impacted games coming off the bench more so than when he has started. But same thing again, he was amazing. I remember in the 2019 All-Ireland semi-final against Limerick, he was one of the reasons why Kilkenny ultimately won that game. But it is 5 years ago. FPL lad says here, just joining now, but I thought that Gerard Hegarty had one of his worst games in a long time. I think that is courtesy of Kieran Joyce. Just like the job that he did on Hegarty was absolutely sensational. And Pat Ryan's decision to not just leave Mark Coleman on him, but to switch Kieran Joyce onto him was a very, very savvy and clever decision to make now that we can see how it did play out. So yeah, the All-Ireland Hurling Final of 2024 will be Cork against Clare, but they had some thrilling action across the LGFA and the Camogie Championships, and then of course we'll touch on Derry winning the All-Ireland Minor Final, and also parting company with Mickey Hart. So stick with us. We're going to go through now. I'm going to look at this next one. This is a little happy moment for Dublin in a year that hasn't had many of them. Beating Kilkenny in Croke Park, 113 to 12 points in the All-Ireland Senior Camogie Championship Quarter Final. I did not see this coming. I have to say, the girls definitely put in one of the best displays I've ever seen them put in this game. And one of the other things that was quite surprising was we were better than Kilkenny. This wasn't like a smash and grab. Like, we outworked them for long periods of that game. The early goal from Sinead Wild put us in a great position. And then Ashla Marr's free taking was just brilliant. She did miss a penalty, but she recovered. And she just kept tapping the frees over the bar and kept Dublin ticking along nicely. And then Emma Flanagan there, full forward, tapping over a few points. Like, everybody very much pulled in the one direction. And Kilkenny just weren't at the races at all. They were missing some big hitters. No Miriam Walsh, no Denise Gall. But still, a huge win for the Dubs.
Yeah, I think that last line is probably more important maybe than it is, because Denise and Miriam, it's the equivalent of taking Brian Fenton and John Heslin out of our counties in men's football. They are monstrous players, and I don't think Kilkenny have really ever properly replaced the likes of Shelley Farrell and that kind of thing. I know Shelley's out in Australia, but I don't think they've ever fully kind of replaced some of the old guards who were just there for so long and just are absolutely bullish kind of players. The early goal for Dublin, probably a bit of a shell shot to Kilkenny, because that wouldn't be something they'd be used to at a quarter final stage. Maybe semi-final, final, it might be a bit more kind of 50-50 game. They would have got into this expecting to blitz through Dublin. And Mara's free taking, as you said, was superb. And to bounce back from the penalty miss it's great to see. We had a penalty miss for Westmeath there on Saturday. We never bounced back from it. For Aisha Mara to do it on such a big stage is commendable for her, and it can only stand to Dublin going forward that, in semi-final they'll have been resolute, they'll have got past Kilkenny, they'll have suffered a missed penalty and still won a game, and they know they have a weapon in a free taker, which is so vital in camogie as well these days, particularly at the top level. So there's nothing stopping them now from going a step or two further, and I think the Dublin lady footballers and men's footballers would be very disappointed if the camogie win it, and neither of them do, because what a year it could have been for Dublin, to go on and win so many things in different codes in the same year. But credit to the camogie girls, that was impressive. When I saw the result and I went back and watched the extended kind of highlights of it, I was a bit stunned at how aggressive Dublin seemed to be in the rucks. I don't know if that was a
Dublin
thing
were
that
getting
sort of played out
stuck in.
all
There was
game.
a few
Yeah,
big hits going in.
yeah, and that's what you have to do to a team like Kilkenny, because if you don't, they'll just batter you out of the way. Like I know I referenced Michelle Farrell, like Shelley Farrell, because she's not the tallest player in the world at all, but by God, like she would go through you for a shortcut, and that's where teams often fall back when they get a bit of physicality. It almost kind of knocks them a little bit. But Dublin seem to be hellbound on dominating every bit of that game yesterday, and were full value from what I saw for their win.
Yeah, no, they definitely were. And the feeling was, I was in Croke Park watching that game. Just the feeling is we were just growing in confidence, and like you're kind of looking at the clock, because in some way it's very similar to the Cork Limerick game, that you kind of don't believe that you can do it, but the more you look at the clock, you're waiting for the dam to break. Yeah, okay, when are Kilkenny going to get their goal? And I thought like Dublin's defending was just sensational, absolutely brilliant, and any free that we were getting as well, Ashma was just making Kilkenny pay for it. But all throughout this year, I have to say, I've thought that there's been something off with Kilkenny. They haven't seen right in the league. They seem pretty beatable. And then in the Leinster Championship, Dublin got closer to them than we have in a long time. And they just look miles off Galway and Cork and Tip, who I think are the best three.
Yeah, I know they murdered us in the opening round in Leinster. We don't even look at Leinster because it's just a sideshow to what we actually have to focus on. But yeah, they put like 6-18 or something past us, and we hadn't conceded that much, I think, combined in the entire league probably. So it was a bit of a wake up call for us when they put out that full team, because Denise and Miriam both played against us that day. In some parts, they just are physically very, very big. Like we have, to be fair to Westmeath here, I compared them against them, I suppose, from that game. We have a very, very good defense. They looked like leprechauns beside these girls. They were monstrously tall, aggressive, but so skillful, flicking the ball up, hitting shots from miles out that some other girls probably wouldn't even consider. And they are generally on a different planet. But I suppose I've only seen, I think, maybe three of their games this year. And while they didn't look, world beaters, I still would have expected them to tip on a little bit further. And Dublin maybe just had their homework done a little bit and realised, look, they're not the world beaters anymore, so let's get at them. This is our chance. And they might have opened up the camogie world a little bit now for future years if Dublin can do something like that. It was is impressive, and I'm thrilled. I'm thrilled for Dublin to do it, because I've been at a few sort of Dublin camogie games. I used to go to a few club games when I lived up there as well, and you'd see the effort these girls are putting in, and there might be an attendance of like 5 people. And they're getting no recognition for it. And it's great now because it just takes the county team to give a boost, to do something, to encourage more to get involved as well. That's a big win. That's a statement for Dublin, really, to make Dublin camogie. So hopefully they build on it.
Certainly, no, and be tuning into the semi-final, and hopefully we can stay clear of Cork. Like if we can get Tip, I think it's a more winnable game. I'm not saying that we will. I still would make Tip overwhelming favourites, but I'm not
separate pots,
as
isn't it, or something?
scared.
Is that right?
What?
Separate pots, is it? 2 teams
Yeah.
in one pot, 2 teams in the other.
Yeah. So I'd rather we got Tip. I think that,
Okay.
and then maybe Galway could take out Cork, and I think Galway's a little bit more winnable. But I also think Galway could beat Cork if they get it right. We have a couple of comments in here. Brian Lohan will retire after winning the All-Ireland Hurling Final, says Acers. He also backs up with crazy that Kilkenny has now lost 3 times out of the last 5 semi-finals to Munster teams. Obviously, that's to Cork, to Waterford, and now this year to Clare. And we're going to move on to the next game, the All-Ireland Senior Camogie Championship Quarter Final. This one wasn't an upset. Galway back to winning ways, beating Waterford by a goal in 12 to a goal in 9. The tribesmen are back in the All-Ireland semi-finals. This game, a little bit disappointing, a bit of a flat performance by Waterford, I have to say. They definitely started slow. Galway looked like they were just far more used to Croke Park. in general. Carrie Dolan landed a free from a huge distance out, which got them off to a great start. Niamh Mallon, I thought, was really, really sharp up front. Niamh McPeak at centre forward. They just looked better than Waterford. And then Waterford coming towards the end, I was delighted for Beth Carton on a personal level that she got a penalty and she buried it. And that was almost like a little bit of redemption for her missed penalty in last year's All-Ireland final. But then the goalkeeper, Brianna O'Regan, lands a huge free. And you're thinking, okay, they're 1 point behind now. Surely they kick on and win this game. And then they just did nothing else for the remainder of the game. Galway hit 2 more points. And that's it.
Yeah, I think Beth seemed to have been injured early on in the game and just never really looked at kind of full tilt for most of it. And I know she buried the penalty, but she seemed to pick up, I think commentary kind of alluded to it as well, that the ankle wasn't right after an early kind of, wasn't much a tackle, as kind of a coming together, I think. And she wasn't really able to get that burst of pace. And I think it affected Waterford a little bit. There was as there tends to be often with Waterford, there tends to be a reliance on Niamh Rockett and Beth Carton to kind of get things going. And Niamh was kind of had to do a lot more because I don't think Beth looked fully comfortable for a lot of it. But then at the same time, Galway are just more, they were a little bit more clever at the end, that they didn't let Waterford get to them even when they were, attempting to come back into it. They just sort of stuck to their guns and just played it out really in the end. When they got the 3 points ahead at the end, I didn't really think Waterford ever looked like getting a goal. Galway were happy to shore up the defence, and obviously there wasn't really time for 3 points. So yeah, the better team on the day won, even if they didn't win as convincingly. I don't think it's crept into Camogie where teams sort of put on the brakes until the semi-final and show their real hand then. I don't think that really happens. So Galway still have another couple of gears to go through, and they will need those gears if they're going to win this thing, because you now have it's probably unfair to call them an unknown quantity, but you have certainly a surprise package in Dublin who are going to be out with nothing to lose, and they'll be out to ruffle a few feathers and cause a bit of an upset. But better team won in Galway for sure.
Yeah, no, the Galway were the better side. There's no question about it. Picking up a deserved win. Another side that picked up a deserved win. This one definitely was a shock. Was Galway, but the LGFA team over Dublin 3-7 to a goal and 12 in Parnell Park. Now, what's ironic is I watched the Galway versus Dublin league match this year. It was in Parnell Park. And Galway dominated for 55 minutes, like genuinely dominated, and then somehow threw the game away. And I remember at full time being like, how in God's name have Dublin won that game? Like, how on earth have Galway thrown that away? And I knew then coming into this game that Galway definitely have the forwards to hurt Dublin. But I just hadn't seen enough that told me that Galway would do it. It was like I knew that they had the ability to put it up to Dublin and the ability potentially to really push them to the pin of their collars. But would they get it right? Would they pick the right team? Everything like that. I wasn't very confident that they would. But by God, they did. And they knock out Dublin in their own backyard.
Yeah, I think Dublin will look at that scoreline and think conceding 7 points to Galway and losing the game is not what Dublin ladies football is generally about. Mick Bowen's obviously a fairly intense man, maybe might be the way to say it. I haven't texted Aisling Nyhan yet to ask what happened, but they will certainly be very, very disheartened by the manner of the defeat. And Roisin Leonard scored 2-1 or 2 or 3 or something anyway, but like it shouldn't be a surprise that she's going to be on form. She should be the one you're trying to stop. You should be trying to stop her, stop Dively, stop the ones you need to stop. And I don't think they were fully on it yesterday for whatever reason. I'm not really sure. If you take Hannah Tyrrell out of that Dublin team, I don't think they're anywhere near as strong. I think she is the multi-talented sports person that she is the life and blood of that team. It's a very disappointing way to lose it as well. Now, for Galway, it's a phenomenal way to win it, obviously, with Eva's goal and the way it came about. But to do it in Parnell and to knock Dublin out, I think Mick Bowen would be massively upset by the nature of the defeat. Probably as much as the result. When it's knockout football, you're out and that's it. You can look back at whatever way you want. But I think I don't know a whole lot. I know bits and pieces about what his management style is like. It'll frustrate him, the manner in which they lost it. I think he'd rather have lost it by 20 than lose it by 1, and at least know, right, this is exactly where we went wrong. Whereas you're trying to pick at bits and pieces, throughout the game now. So great for Galway. They'll tip on nicely, and they'll be quite happy to try and fly under the radar a little bit and let the others, take the headlines for a little bit. But I don't think Galway have enough to win the All-Ireland. I don't think.
Well, I think immediately the team I'm looking at is Kerry and Armagh.
Yeah.
I'm looking at them thinking, well, if you don't win it this year, forget about it. Like, it's not going to happen. Galway and Cork really blow hot and cold. Like, I'm not surprised that Galway. Like, I'm not shocked that Galway won. I'm surprised. I definitely thought Dublin would win, but I also wouldn't be surprised either if Galway then are flat in the semi-final and get knocked out. Like, they have that in them to really blow hot and cold. So do Cork. But I think Galway just have that talent of the Noon sisters and the Ward sisters and Olivia Dively and Alva Davern and like all the players as well in the Kilkenny Clonberne team that I've named that have just had, absolutely bags of success in the club championships. And you're like, you have a spine of those girls in the team. Why is it not translating onto the pitch more? But this year they've won the Connacht title. They've, now knocked out the All-Ireland champions and they're into the All-Ireland semi-final. On paper, it's been a hell of a year for Galway and there's been nothing really that we can say. For Dublin, it's really confusing because when Sinead Golder came back, I really thought we're unstoppable this year. There's nothing standing in our way of winning the All-Ireland Championship. I just thought we're keeping Jennifer. Sinead is here. We still have Carla and Hannah Tyrrell in the full forward line, nothing stopping us. And then we just fall off the championship at kind of nowhere. So I think Mick Bohan will certainly be scratching his head as to what happened in this game. We had home advantage. We had all the cards and we lost. So it definitely is one that you need to scratch the head at over the off season. Now, Kerry picked up a good win here against Meath in Austin Stack Park, 16 points to 8 double scores. Even though Meath had Vicky Wall back for Kerry, now that Dublin have been knocked out of the championship, this has to be the year for the Kingdom. They have to go and do it, in my opinion. And they've taken one giant step closer by beating Meath in a very impressive performance, particularly in the second half.
Yeah, not the same Meath team, I suppose, that many of us would be used to, who were, pulling up trees and winning the All-Ireland and everything kind of out of nowhere. That team has become a little bit fractured over the last number of years with players leaving. Obviously, Vicky won, sort of. I don't know if it helps a team either when a star disappears and then comes back in and takes someone's place on the team who's maybe been pushing hard for it. When she's gone and she kind of comes back in, out of nowhere. I don't know if that helps a scenario or helps a team either. They're not the same Meath team. If Kerry didn't win that comfortably, I would have been very surprised. But it's Kerry's to lose. Like, I don't know. I don't even think Armagh really can stop them. I'd be stunned if Kerry
without Amy Matthew.
Yeah, like you give them a good chance if Amy is there, but like they're not. There's nobody really stopping Kerry. If anyone stops Kerry, good on them because they'll win the All-Ireland if they do. But Kerry should canter their way to victory. They're too good. Defensively, they're too strong. Forwards are too quick, too mobile, too good at kicking scores from close, from distance. They can get goals if they're stuck. They often don't need them. Didn't need any against Meath. They were happy just to tag away, play in second gear. And like you see Galway going full tilt to beat Dublin. Like they'll need to be ultra full tilt now if they're to, if they meet Kerry. So I think Kerry will. I'd be surprised if they don't stroll to the title.
Yeah, no, I would be surprised as well, to be honest. Cork might be able to stop them. Cork seem to usually have a bit of a voodoo over Kerry. They beat Waterford very comfortably in this game, 117-2-4. Given the start of the season with the league that Cork had when they got relegated, the year actually has turned out relatively okay.
Yeah. I thought Waterford might offer a little bit more. It's 2-4 is a fairly dire kind of return.
Yeah.
6 scores in a game is very unlikely to win. Like Galway score of 3-7 wasn't brilliant either, but it's still 10 scores at the end of the day. 2-4 is very, very low scoring. Cork will kind of feel that they have to feel this between themselves and Kerry really for this. But I still think that if you put 15 against 15 of the red against the green and gold, I still think Kerry are better on paper, and there's very few of the Kerry players that I would swap for Cork players on like a dream team. I don't see. I see Cork maybe putting it up to them for a while, but Kerry should come out on top. Like, this is Dublin gone. This has literally been handed to Kerry on a plate, and it's whether they can finish their dinner or not now at this stage. So,
well, I think of one team. I think realistically all of them can win it, because I think Kerry have yet to smash through that glass ceiling yet.
yeah.
And I feel like
But
until
wait till they
do
do,
that,
though. Yeah, when they do. Yeah.
I think Armagh, in my opinion, are the most likely to stop them. Armagh 2-11, Mayo 11 points. Blaheen Mackin was named player of the match. Obviously, she's just returned from the cruciate ligament. Now Amy's done her cruciate ligament, so she's gone.
Yeah.
I mean, the timing of the injuries is absolutely horrific from an Armagh point of view. But in this game at the Athletic Grounds, they did make little fuss out of Mayo and cruised to a 6-point win.
Yeah, and it's an awful shame for football in general, especially when they're family members, when the two of them are so good. And it's so hard lately to get the two of them on the pitch at the same time because of injuries. And obviously for the foreseeable, it'll be that way with the ACL for Amy. So I think an Armagh team at full strength with Amy and Blaheen maybe might be in contention, but without the two of them, I don't think that they are the formidable side that they have been for a while pre ACL injury and all that. So no, I don't. I think that might be the next step for Armagh. Will be. I don't know. Is there a draw done yet, or who plays who? Do we know yet?
Matthew has it up 1 second. I'll get it up now.
Yeah, because I think it depends who's playing who really. If Kerry play Cork in the semi-final, then Kerry would probably look at that as their All-Ireland final, really.
It is Cork versus Galway, Kerry versus Armagh.
Okay.
And the Camogie semi-finals is Tip, Galway, Cork, Dublin. So I think it's going to be Cork and Tip for me in the Camogie final.
Okay. Yeah.
And Kerry, Galway in the football.
So it's Kerry against Armagh in the football, and yeah, I still it doesn't change my views on it. I still think it's Kerry's football to lose. Really, they look at Armagh, I think, as a final essentially, because that could be their toughest game. I still don't think Cork are quite there, even though they have the hoodoo and all that over them. I still think if to put my mortgage on it, I think it's Kerry's.
Okay, we'll touch on it. I'm just going to touch on this real quick. Massive congratulations to Derry, the All-Ireland Minor Football Champions for 2024, beating Armagh 2-7 to 10 points at Healy Park. Cody Rocks and James Sargent with the goals for Derry as they beat their rivals Armagh and Healy Park. Incredible victory for the lads. What we're going to do to wrap up the show, though, is not talk about Derry winning the All-Ireland Minor Championship. We're going to talk about Mickey Hart stepping down as Derry manager. I mean, what a change a few months can make. You literally spin the clock back to March. It was all rosy. And the thing is, a lot of people were saying, just wait until they hit a bit of turbulence. And that's one of the things that I was saying as well. Just wait until they hit a bit of turbulence. It's all well and good to be winning every game in the league. And yeah, everything that you touch turns to gold. But just wait until it really hits the fan and then see how really invested Derry in the Mickey Hart project. And the one thing that I constantly was saying was Mickey Hart was brought in as Derry football manager to win the All-Ireland.
Yeah.
That's why he was brought in. It wasn't for a 5-year project. They brought him in to cash in on the team that they had. They thought they were good enough to win the All-Ireland this year, so they're bringing Mickey Hart in to get them over the line. And it just hasn't worked at all. They were well further away this year than they were last year in terms of where they've ended up with the season. I think team-wise, player-wise, I think they are good enough still. I think if they get the next appointment right, they will be All-Ireland contenders next season, but not with Mickey Hart as manager.
No, they were so good in the league, but the league counts for nothing when you're, as you said, your entire ideology is that you are here to win the championship, and that's it. And if you're only here for a season and you win it, great, because we've so many good footballers in the county who've all decided that they're all good at the same time. We've managed to build them into this great unit. They're just 9 out of 10. We want you to get them to 10 out of 10, win Sam, and you can head off into the sunset, and that'll be it. And they were so abject, to put it nicely, in the championship that it was almost inexplicable. There were plenty of journalists who were kind of struggling to piece together where things have gone wrong, and it was very easy to look at the kick-out strategy and getting caught for these outrageous goals that we never see in GAA matches, where you've an empty net from 50 yards out. Like, there are things that shouldn't be happening. There are things that do not happen to a team who want to win the All-Ireland. They are not even things that happen to a team who are struggling to get off the bottom of Division 4 in the league. So stubbornness has cost him big time. And whether it's stubbornness because he has no plan B, or whether it's stubbornness because that's just the way he is and always kind of has been, we'll never know, and it'll probably come out in time. I'm sure players will, drop a few hints here and there.
There's an autobiography coming out.
Yeah. I'd say there's you could write a whole book on the back room, of what was going on in that setup. But I think there was a substitution that happened in, I can't remember which of the games it was, and Conor Glass looked pretty peed off by it. Was it the Westmeath one? Was it? I'm trying to remember.
Yeah, he took off Emma Bradley, and I remember Glass turned around.
That's it. Yeah. And that it was against us actually. I was trying to remember, was it us? And then didn't want to say if it was. So that said a lot. It's very rare that your leader would create an argument from the pitch to the sideline mid-game. It doesn't speak well of maybe the respect that was there in the league versus what was in the championship. I think things happened that would be a great Netflix series if we had something behind the scenes, but we might never know the full extent of it. We might get bits and pieces of it, I'm sure, and stories will come out and all that and everything else. But it was very, very obvious that there was something amiss, and tactically it was really amiss. But for the fortune of them getting us, Westmeath, in that last group game, who were lost on confidence, who were playing an extremely defensive game. The Shane Walsh goal in Cusack Park burst our bubble completely, and we've 7 lads in the team who were already had their plane tickets booked and really weren't at the race at all. Any other county who were a little bit more adept at things than us on the day would have knocked them out. We were the first team to concede goals against Derry in a long time. So we're the first team not to score a goal against them either, which shows you the mindset we had. So we were the wrong team on the wrong day. For Mickey Hart, we were the right team on the perfect day for them. On another day, Mickey Hart would have been gone 3-4 weeks ago. It just so happens that he managed to get another game out of it and then decided he's gone. So it's a bizarre story. It'll probably be, a side story at the end of the season when we look back and go, what the hell happened? Like, when as a team had such a fall from dominant grace in the league to absolute poverty.
I've never seen a team look so good to 2 months later look so bad. with the same players on the pitch. It wasn't like anybody had retired. Like,
yeah,
just
like
they looked so bad.
Like if a few club teams,
genuinely,
obviously
they
I would
looked
know,
like
but
they didn't give a shit in the Armagh game.
no,
Like they just
no.
in the Armagh game,
And,
particularly the Conor Turbic goal, where he just walked it into the net.
yeah,
It was just what is going on here? And persisting with this tactic with Lynch was just ridiculous. And I don't know, it was just they really unraveled. And the thing is that you look at Jim McGuinness, for example, like Donegal losing to Cork. That's a distant memory now, because Donegal have bounced back.
It's forgotten. Yeah,
it's forgotten, especially if they make it into an All-Ireland final. Nobody will care a jot about that.
No,
it's about digging into
they look at it as a they look at it as a learning curve. That like it was a good thing for Donegal that they were exposed a little bit because it gave them something to work on. Derry were exposed for 3 games in a row and still persisted with the same crap against us because they probably knew deep down that we were never really going to put the fight up to them properly. Now, in the end, we didn't lose by much. And as I said, on a better day and a slightly better team than us, maybe would have turned them over. But he learned nothing as he went along. If anything, he got worse. Like it was, the goals will forever be, I think, one of the highlights of this season for me, because I could vividly remember like 3 of them, and I'm just like, how is this a Gaelic football match? Like this is lads playing out in the yard at break time, and you've brought everyone up for the crack, and you've just got caught in the break, like in the last minute of a game when you're 2-1 down in soccer. This isn't like GA in the 20th minute when someone's running from 50 yards and there's literally nobody ahead of them. Like it's bizarre. It reminded me of Shane Walsh in the for Galway, not that long ago as well. Sliding it in. Yeah, it's just it shouldn't happen. I think it was interesting to try it, but when it doesn't work, like the definition of insanity, is doing the same thing over and over again that fails and expecting it to change overnight. And that was insanity 101 from Hearts. And I don't think Derry are going to miss him. Joe Brawley is not going to miss him anyway, that's for sure. So,
yeah. In a word, correct decision?
If he didn't step down, I think someone was going to push him off the step anyway. So,
yeah. I think correct decision for Mickey Hart, correct decision by Derry to part ways with him. Didn't work. Forget about it.
Yeah.
And he's torched his legacy with Tyrone for what?
Yep.
For absolutely nothing. Last few comments in. Acer says Cork will win the women's hurling final easily. Then he says Holland supporters dance. Armagh supporters should do the same dance on Saturday night down Jones's Road before the Kerry game. Then poor Lennon says an end of an era for Kilkenny relying on TJ and he's going to retire now. No All-Ireland in them. And then it says it's more of an end of an era for Kilkenny than the Dubs. Murphy's going to go. TJ, Buckley, Fogarty, Deegan maybe. I wouldn't say Deegan, but I think you're looking at Conor Fogarty, Killian Buckley, TJ Reid. I think they might go. They might call it a day. Owen Murphy, I wouldn't be sure of as well. I think Owen Murphy probably has another couple of years in him. But anyway, it's been a bumper weekend. And I mean, to have the Mickey Hart news dropped literally 6 minutes before we started recording the episode, bit nuts. But we managed to cover it all. My thanks, deep thanks to Jason for jumping on the episode. And thank you to anybody who commented it and put in the comments, especially, I'm just going to read out a few names. Acers, loads of comments in from him. Porrig Lennon, FPL lad, and indeed Sean O'Malley, all thrown in comments here. Really appreciate it, lads. The UFC bantamweight champion of the world putting in a few comments there as well. But that's been the episode, guys. Thank you so much for watching. The weekend preview will take place either on Wednesday or Thursday. Keep an eye out on the socials for the updates on that time and everything like that. But we'll see you then, and I will see you next Sunday for the review of all those games. Until that next episode does come, take care.